Okay. This is The Awakening for Wednesday, July 24th. Counting down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of The Awakening. I'm your host, Bishop E.W. Jackson. Great to be with you here on American Family Radio, The Awakening Podcast. You can listen to it every Wednesday. It's posted every Wednesday on American Family Radio. You can go to afr.net or the American Family Radio podcast, the American Family Radio app, I should say, to listen to the podcast. And then it's, of course, archived there for you. And thank you all for tuning in. I'm so happy to be back on the air on American Family Radio. Well, folks, big news, big news. Two big stories that have been dominating the news for now the last 24 hours. One is that this former head of the Secret Service has finally resigned, something she should have done on day one, frankly, because it was so obvious to everyone, that the woman was a complete and total incompetent. So obvious to everyone that she should be gone. Apparently obvious to everybody except her. She's the only one who didn't seem to get it. But here is the important takeaway from this whole event. Oh, Lord have mercy. I am so glad that we're not talking about the death of former President Donald Trump. And folks, we could have been. I mean, it was just that close. Just that close. But here's the important takeaway from this horrifying event. This is what you get when you hire on the basis of diversity, equity, and inclusion rather than hiring on the basis of pure merit. Now, this woman is apparently a Secret Service agent, has been a Secret Service agent who is a leftist. They didn't hire her because she was the most competent person to do the job or that she was competent at all. They hired her because apparently she's a left-wing sycophant. They hired her because she met the ideological test. And she would basically do what they wanted her to do. I mean, apparently including not valuing the life of former President Donald Trump very much. They said, well, isn't that a little unfair? I mean, because you don't really know. Yeah, we do know. We do know. Because anybody, folks, it's the common sense test. You and I, now maybe some of you watching, some of you listening, I should say. I do a lot of video live streaming stuff. But some of you listening right now, and by the way, later watching, because we'll make this available in a video version to people later on. But at any rate, however you are interacting with this program, whether you're watching it, listening to it, or doing both, the common sense test is, except for those of you who are law enforcement officers who have some training in protective services, we're not experts on protecting people. I travel with security, and I've got a lot more understanding of how the process works because the people who work with me have taught me a lot about the process. But I'm not an expert. Again, some of you may be experts out there who are listening or watching or both. But every single human being with an ounce of common sense looked at that situation and said, Why wasn't the roof of a building 130, now they're saying 200 yards. She said 200 yards. I don't believe her. 130 yards away, covered to make sure that no one could climb up on that roof. So if we non-experts understand that, that's obvious to us. You mean to tell me somebody who's supposed to be trained in the science, if you will, in the profession of protecting the lives of our public officials, didn't know that that roof created a major vulnerability? Okay, that's the first part. Okay, you could perhaps recover by saying, yes, that was a major problem and it should not have happened. But to explain it to us by saying the roof was sloped, and you all forgive me if I'm being repetitive here, because I know I've said this before, but it bears repeating. The roof was sloped and created a safety factor. Oh my goodness gracious. And see, folks, that's why you need a leader in charge of the Secret Service. Because if a leader heard somebody say, well, we didn't put an agent up there because it's a sloped roof, would say, get your backside up on that roof. I don't care about it being sloped. You do what you need to do to get up there and protect our former president. The roof is sloped and it's, oh my. I mean, folks, that just makes me downright angry. I would rather you just say, you know what? It's a lapse in judgment. The roof should have been covered. I don't know what anybody was thinking. We have no excuses. I mean, I'd rather you say that. But to tell me, no, the roof was sloped and it was a safety issue? Oh, my goodness. She's gone. She has resigned. She wasn't fired. It should have been done. The President of the United States of America should have fired that woman immediately. Immediately, she should have been fired. But unfortunately, being the weak president that he is, the puppet who is being controlled by the puppeteers that he is, he just did nothing. And so finally, as a result of, and God is still working miracles, because you actually had bipartisan agreement that she needed to go. You actually had Democrats agreeing that she needed to go. Will wonders never cease? So at any rate, she's gone. And there are other questions about this too. When she gets before Congress, the Oversight Committee, and she refuses to answer basic questions and says, I don't know, you could talk to the FBI. Your people are on duty when a former president of the United States is shot. You want to know every single detail of what went down. And you demand it. To sit before Congress and say, oh, I don't talk to the FBI. Talk to the FBI. Yeah, talk to I mean, this woman, you look in the dictionary under the word incompetence, put a big old picture of her there. Just slap it in there, because you say, she is the icon. Kimberly Cheatle, the icon of incompetence. So, thank God she's gone. That's all I can say. Thank God she's gone. And I don't know what they're going to do about a replacement. I assume that whoever was second in command has stepped up to replace her for the time being. And I don't know whether in the next 6 months, President Biden will appoint someone else. I'd rather, if the person who stepped in is a career person, I'd rather that person be left in charge until the next president is elected, President Donald J. Trump is elected, and then can appoint somebody of his own choosing. I don't trust Biden to do it because I just believe Biden will pick a hack, another hack. Whoever the puppeteers are will say, hey, this is a guy we owe something to. Here, just put him in there. And before you know it, you got another incompetent in there. And given the level of tension in the country, and given the rhetoric of these Democrats saying that President Trump is a tyrant and a dictator and he's Adolf Hitler, he's Osama bin Laden. I think I shared that with you all last time. In a CNN interview, this one of the cops who was on duty at J6, he actually likened President Trump to Osama bin Laden. So when you got that kind of rhetoric out there and you don't denounce it and you don't correct it and you don't apologize for it, you don't withdraw, whatever, you are just stirring the pot. You're asking for the crazies to come out. And it's got to stop. It really does. And look, folks, I'm not saying we don't have some crazies who try to associate themselves with the conservative movement. I'm not saying that. They're not with us here on American Family Radio. And they're not in my circles that I travel with, that I know, or people that I associate with. I've never heard a single person advocate violence in the conservative movement and say, well, you know, it's time to pick up a gun. It's time to go do this or do that. Now, some of you have asked me the question as that time come, given some of the things that have happened in our country. And you know, I've always said, no. We have not exhausted our constitutional mechanisms, and we've got to keep doing that. And violence is a proper and appropriate and legal self-defense mechanism. It is not a way of correcting our political problems. That doesn't mean we don't fight, but the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. That's how we fight. We fight the good fight of faith. And we trust God to do the correcting in this country that so desperately needs to get done. I heard for the first time someone say that if President Trump had been killed, that it might well have erupted in a civil war. I heard someone say that, a commentator say that. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I know one thing. There is no question in my mind. It would have brought us to the edge. And this former incompetent Secret Service director was really playing with fire. And by the way, I could be wrong about this, and I no longer quickly dismiss conspiracy theories as I have in the past. I'm open to consider things that I haven't in the past because I've been amazed by the diabolical behavior of these leftists and their willingness to do almost anything, maybe I should say anything, in order to get and keep power. But I don't believe she was involved in some kind of conspiracy to get President Trump killed. I do believe that something was in operation that devalued his life, because they've now confirmed that increased Secret Service protection was requested and denied. So I have no doubt that they didn't put the same value on his life that they would have another former president, particularly another liberal president, former president. I have no doubt whatsoever. And that's not exactly a conspiracy theory, but as I've said before, when people all have the same attitude, they have the same values, they have the same vision, you really don't need a conspiracy because they're all singing from the same hymn book. They're all operating in sync with one another. So, at any rate, she's gone. Goodbye. Good riddance. Wish the woman no ill, but please don't come back to public service. Go do something else, because you have completely destroyed your character and your competence in public life, as far as I'm concerned, forever. Because you almost got a former president killed. And that's pretty bad. I don't know that it could get much worse, as I said, other than the President Trump actually having been assassinated. But when your ear is shot, man, that is too close for comfort. So, goodbye, good riddance. She's gone. Obviously, the next 800-pound gorilla in the room is the fact that not only has Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential sweepstakes, but he has endorsed Kamala Harris. And just recently, just before recording this podcast, it was declared that she had the delegates to win the nomination. So she now is the presumptive nominee. So it is going to be Trump versus Harris. That's the nature of the race. So, a lot of things to say about this. First of all, we recall that Kamala Harris was the worst candidate in the primaries, in 2016. And she went absolutely nowhere, because people immediately saw that she was a dingbat, a ditz, that the woman's there's just nothing there. And we've seen it over the years of her in office with the stupid laugh and the word salads and the kind of meaningless statements that she's trying to make so profound that you just realize, here's a fool who doesn't have the sense to know she's a fool. And while she thinks everybody's laughing with her, everybody's laughing at her because she is such a fool. So she went nowhere. She was the first, I'm pretty sure she was the first to drop out. But Biden plucks her up as his nominee. And I don't know if the first and most important qualification of a vice presidential nomination is, can this person step in and serve as president immediately? Biden completely failed that test. He completely and totally and absolutely failed that test. Because it didn't take but a minute for everybody to realize Kamala Harris was in no way qualified to be president of the United States. She wasn't then, she has never been, and she's not now. So, in fact, recent polling showing who the Democrats would most favor to be the nominee, with Biden dropping out. Last place. I mean, this guy Josh Shapiro, Mark Kelly, they even had this Warnock the Warlock, this man pretending to be a preacher who's nothing but a witch. They even had him on the list ahead of Kamala Harris. She's in last place. Now, that's what the polling says that the Democrat voters would want, who they would pick, who they would choose. So how is it that you get rid of Biden and you choose the person who did the worst in the first primary, presidential primary in which she won, and the person who's doing the worst in the polling, but all the elites galvanize around her, and now she's the nominee? How does that work in the party that is constantly telling us we've got to save our democracy. We've got to save our democracy. Well, except when it comes to us. Except when it comes to us getting our way and doing what we want to do, then democracy can take a hike. You know, the three scariest words to a Democrat are found in the Constitution. We the people. Those are three scariest words to the Democrat because to the Democrat Party, because they don't like people, they don't care about people, they're not interested in people, and they don't want we the people deciding anything. We'll take care of the important decisions. Thank you very much. And you yokels can go, go do whatever it is you do and let us take care of the country and we will exercise power. Thank you very much. And we'll exercise over you. We'll exercise it over you and you will like it. Democracy. I mean, what a joke. What a joke. Look, folks, I've said it before. Forgive me for being repetitious, but the truth doesn't change. These people could care less about the American people, or for that matter, the members of the Democrat Party. They care only about one thing: power, getting it and keeping it. That's it. That's all. And look, when power is your God, anything goes. When power is your God, you'll cheat to win an election. You'll lie. You'll steal. You'll mislead. You will break the rules you yourself set. Anything in order to get power and keep it. The thing that matters most is how do we expand our power? How do we get more power and control over people? And we should be commended for it because, of course, it's for their good. So, yeah, they basically what they've done is said to the rank and file of the Democrat Party, you all can go take a flying leap in the closest lake. We're going to get behind the incompetent, the cackling, hackling, incoherent Kamala Harris, because we think she offers us the best opportunity to keep the power that we got through Joe Biden. And we're not giving it up. So we'll install Kamala as the nominee. And then if we can, we'll install her as the president. And then thank you very much. We don't care how much she cackles, hackles. We don't care how stupid she looks as long as she does our bidding. You know, I always said that when people said, do you think Joe Biden's going to be the nominee? I said, look, the only issue for these puppeteers, for the George Soros of the world, the Barack Obamas of the world, for the Bill Gates of the world, for the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, the Jeff Bezos of the world, for Nancy Pelosi, for Chuck Schumer, for all of these Democrat political hacks. The only thing that matters to them is, can we have someone, do we have someone who will do what we want them to do? And if that's the case, we don't care what the country thinks. We don't care about national security. We care about having someone who will do our bidding, period. And as long as we have that, the rest is just footnotes. And so now they've got that. They've got another puppet that they can control. And they're hoping to install her in the White House. In fact, they really would love to have, I don't know whether you saw any of her speech. I didn't get to watch it all, but because I couldn't. I mean, my stomach is strong, but it's not that strong. But oh my goodness, they're galvanizing around her like, she's the second coming now. The woman who could barely garner any votes for president herself, and the woman who the polls say people don't want as the presidential candidate. But now, oh man, she's the best thing since sliced bread. It's, it is so absurd that you can't help but laugh at it. The woman who she can't string two sentences together any better than Joe Biden. She can read, so now with a teleprompter, she'll be reading a teleprompter. As long as she stays on the teleprompter, she'll probably come across okay. I mean, Biden did. But you turn her loose to try to articulate anything herself, oh my goodness, it's going to be a mess. So look, well, that's the first aspect of this I wanted to get out of the way. The undemocratic, the non-democracy behavior of the people who are always running around telling us, we've got to save our democracy. Oh, Jesus, help us. Well, look, here's the other. That's perhaps the front of the 800-pound gorilla. Here's the back of the 800-pound gorilla. They're going to play the race card to the hilt. Look, the governor of Maryland already started by saying, somebody's got to tell Donald Trump that the presidency of the United States is a black job. Oh, I didn't know we had black jobs. But apparently we do, according to this leftist that's in the governor's seat in Maryland. Apparently we do. And the presidency is now one of them. Now, again, you and I know that's absurd. It's racist. It's stupid. It's inane. I mean, but folks, he's not saying that for you and me. He's sending a little message to black voters saying, we've got an opportunity here to elect the first black woman president of the United States. And having had Barack Obama as the first black president of the United States, we can do it all over again. As if her racial identity automatically makes her qualified. It's a black job. It's not a job for the competent. It's not a job for the intelligent. It's not a job for the courageous. It's not a job for those with integrity. It's not a job for those with honor. It's not a job for those with patriotism. It's not a job for those who love and want to serve the American people. No. Let's not muddy the waters with those insignificant factors. It's a black job for a black person. Now, folks, that's not only absurd, it's wicked. It's evil. It's sick. It is no better and no different, although he'll never be called on it. A governor said that, and you would think, people say, what do you mean? What kind of statement is that? Because if I, as a conservative, made some sort of statement with a racial tinge like that, oh my goodness gracious, the mainstream media would be all over it. E.W. Jackson said and made some, because, of course, everything we say is scrutinized, and everything they say is hailed as just brilliant, insightful. This again shows when power is your God, anything goes, including manipulating people and dividing people on the basis of race. If that's what it takes, let's get it done. I mean, it's no more absurd than Biden saying, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. It threw the ain't in there. I guess that's the way in his mind, black people talk. So he wanted throw his little black patina in there to show he's relating. And this stuff is so thoroughly disgusting. But let me add this, because this is very, very important. if this race ends up being close, and it could be. It could be. I don't think anybody knows at this point what's going to happen. They're going to package. They're going to repackage Kamala Harris as just the comrade Kamala, as just the most brilliant, the woman with just such great integrity and intelligence and insight and creativity and vision and energy. And oh man, you won't even recognize this woman by the time they're done with her. And to the black community, they're going to say very explicitly, don't forget, we got a black woman running for president. And it is your obligation as a black person to go out and vote for her and without any further scrutiny. That's all you need to know. Now, look, in my view, there's a reason why Kamala Harris did not do well in the primaries. And the reason is there's no there. The woman is empty. She's vacuous. And so you'd ask the question, well, then wait a minute. How in the world does she get elected district attorney and attorney general of California? Yeah, well, I think a lot of curious minds are asking that question. And I think there's not a single rational person who knows anything about her history who would deny that it goes back to Willie Brown, former mayor of Seattle, with whom she had an adulterous relationship while he was still married. Now, of course, people say, well, he was separated from his wife. They say, well, but he was still married, okay? I mean, you and I as Christians know separated is not the same thing as divorced or widowed. He was still married, and he was going with Kamala Harris. And her career took off because Willie Brown was one of the most powerful people in California. And he made sure that the doors opened for his mistress. Now, folks, it's ugly, but it's the truth. It's the absolute truth. Right? Because when you ask the question, how in the world did she succeed the way she has? And given the level of complete incompetence that the woman has demonstrated as vice president, there's your answer. I mean, she's played politics at the most base level. And by the way, not to put too fine a point on it, but let me just say, since I'm on this point, and they've got the unmitigated gall to question Donald Trump's morality? Really? Willie Brown was 60 years old. She was in her late 20s. Who in the normal course would be dating guys, looking at guys to marry and whatnot, who might be in their same age as she, late 20s, mid 30s, maybe going up to late 30s, maybe 10-year difference might not be too bad, but a guy twice her age, she's in her late 20s and he's 60. Now, I was born in the day, but I wasn't born yesterday. She wasn't involved in that relationship with Willie Brown because she just thought he was the most handsome and brilliant man she ever met in her life. She was on the political make. And she was making her way politically. Now, again, folks, I'm not apologizing for going there because I just think given all the garbage that they spewed about Donald Trump, you want to talk about those things? Well, let's talk about Kamala Harris. Let's put it this way. people selling themselves for political advantage. She's the icon. She's the poster girl for it. So that, again, just a little footnote there. In light of the fact that they're trotting out all this. In fact, she mentioned this. She mentioned that Donald Trump, she did something in her speech. She did something about, laws to protect women and what Donald Trump did to women. Please. If there's anybody not in a position to play Mother Teresa, it's certainly Kamala Harris. All right. Well, here's what I want to ultimately get to as we get ready to wrap this up. I have to be honest with you. I don't have a lot of confidence in the establishment of the Republican Party. There's a running joke among many of us that, the establishment of the Republican Party has the unique gift of being able to pull defeat out of the jaws of victory. I mean, there's victory right before them, and somehow they figure out how to snatch defeat out of that and end up losing. I think that's what they did in 2022 when they're expecting these big wins in Congress, and they didn't get them because instead of them going hard for what they actually believed in, they played and danced and bobbed and weaved around the issue of life, and really ended up allowing themselves to be caricatured and painted as these anti-women zealots as opposed to pro-life warriors, people who are concerned about the lives of these unborn babies. They need to make that case to the American people and make it hard, but they don't. They don't talk about the sacredness of life. They don't talk about the fact that that unborn baby is a life. God has a plan for that child, just like he has a plan for you. God loves that child, just like he loves you. How do we as human beings think it's okay to just willy-nilly, based on convenience and post-sex contraception, to kill that baby? But they didn't. They mealy-mouthed and danced, and the side that's saying, you're taking away women's reproductive rights. Who wins in that debate? The side that boldly and forthrightly goes out there and tells their lie, not the side that's kind of mealy-mouthed and, let's try to avoid this truth. So I don't have a whole lot of confidence in the Republican establishment. I got a lot more confidence in Donald Trump and his ability to wage a good campaign. But I'll say this, for Trump and for the Republican establishment, because it's probably going to be left to the RNC to take care of this. If they do not make the case that I have been making now, I don't know how long, probably close to 40 years. Yeah, it probably is 40 years. That the Democrat Party does not serve the black community. The Democrat Party does not deserve the votes of the black community. The Democrat Party does not really represent the values of the black community, certainly not black Christians. And people have got to wake up and stop voting for them in blasphemy and rebellion against Almighty God. They've got to stop it. But that case is going to have to be made. You can't take it for granted, because now that they've got a black candidate to put up there, they're going to play the race card. And I don't normally say it like this, but I'll say it like this time. The Republican Party needs to come talk to me. They need to come talk to Bishop E.W. Jackson and ask me, what do you think we should be doing? Because I can tell them. I can tell them precisely what they ought to be doing. You go to our website, standamericapac.us, and you check it out. I've got a big spot there. We're going to be breaking it up into more spots in which I make clear what the Democrat Party has actually done to the black community, and it's horrendous. I mean, have you been to my website, America's Forgotten Children? AmericasForgottenChildren.com or .org will get you there. It's now 641 children murdered in the inner cities of our country since the Defund the Police movement began, and that is a Democrat policy. The Democrats have fully supported that garbage, and it's gotten more black children murdered than any other thing that's ever been done. And they're not being murdered by the Ku Klux Klan, they're not being murdered by cops, and they're not being murdered by racists coming. They're being murdered by the very thugs who are being let out on cashless bail and pleading violent crimes down to misdemeanors and all this nonsense to put these people back out on the street. And they go out and they terrorize communities and end up killing children. The last one happened in Flint, Michigan. This little girl named Trinity, 12 years old, sleeping in her bed when the gangbangers decided they were going to have a shootout in the streets and ended up killing this child. You know, we don't have a gun problem. We got a law enforcement problem because they've demoralized and decapitated police departments across the country. The deterrence factor is utterly gone because there are far fewer cops out there. And when they do arrest people, they can pretty much count on the fact that they'll be put in a revolving door and spun right back out in the streets. I mean, folks, they're not hundreds, thousands of stories of people who should have been locked up who end up killing somebody because they've been let out. In fact, by the way, Kamala Harris's little thing called the Freedom Fund, if I can come and bring it back to her little thing called the Freedom Fund, that Freedom Fund paid, let's see, how much? $350,000 for the release of Christopher Boswell, who was twice convicted of rape. She got him free from jail in 2020, and he went out and killed somebody else. $350,000 that her little Freedom Fund paid to get this guy released. Here's another one. Sean Michael Tillman shot and killed a passenger on the St. Paul Light Rail platform in Minnesota after he was bailed out the month prior for indecent exposure. And that her Freedom Fund bailed this guy out, and he went out and killed somebody. Here's another one. George Howard shot and killed a man in a road rage incident in August 2021, 3 weeks after the Minnesota Freedom Fund bailed him out of jail. So basically, she's siding with the criminals. And who are they killing primarily? Black folks. I mean, it's a travesty. The Republican Party had better get its message straight. This could be this could be one of the great boondoggles of history when people look back and say, how in the world did they end up losing to perhaps the most incompetent nominee ever put up? Well, they got 95% of the black vote and cobbled together the rest. Who knows? Maybe they'll play the same game with Asians. She claims to be Asian. I don't know. But I do know this. The American people need courageous leaders who are willing to see the circumstances for what they are and take action. Because if they don't, if the leaders of the Republican Party don't, they could end up with one of the biggest disasters in the history of this nation politically. Now, I'm going to be doing my part to make sure that doesn't happen. I believe me. I'm going to try to make sure that my voice is heard on this, because I can see it coming now. Now that they've got a black woman nominee, I can see it coming. And they've already, like I said, they've already started. I'm not playing that game. I mean, DEI almost got President Trump killed. I don't want to give DEI an opportunity to kill the country. Now, how's that? That's about as straightforward an analogy as one can get. In fact, I believe there's a little prophetic parable there that we can see in what happened to President Donald Trump. This obsession with identity politics and hiring people who are incompetent to do a job because they check a certain box almost got the former president and candidate for president, who could be president of the United States again, almost got him killed. Are we going to allow a DEI nominee to kill the country? And again, the way to avoid that is to make sure that we turn out the vote. To make sure we get out there and vote, and make sure the American people understand what's at stake, regardless of their background, regardless of their gender, regardless of their income, regardless of their so-called race, if you want to put it that way. To make sure they understand what's at stake, and they go out and vote out these people whose ideas and ideology are completely incompatible with our constitutional republic. The vision for this nation is one nation under God. The vision of the Democrats is a divided, tribal, collectivist nation in which you have warring factions fighting each other over the crumbs that they throw off the table. No, thank you. No, thank you. Well, folks, I think that's going to do it for today. But I tell you, oh my goodness gracious. I love this country. I love you. I'm praying for you. Please pray for me. I've got some real challenges here between now and the election. And I'm going to, by the grace of God, meet them all. But pray for me, because I can't do anything on my own, but I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Pray for American Family Radio. Pray for the American Family Association, because we've got big vision given to us by a big God, and we really believe and want to play a major, God intends for us to play a major role in the redemption of this nation and calling it back to Him. With your prayers and your support, we're going to do just that. So in the meantime, by the way, if you want to connect with me or check me out, go to my website, standamerica.us, standamerica.us. Of course, you can get in touch with me through American Family Radio and the American Family Association as well. But in the meantime, folks, stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up. Because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. Because we are on God's side.